here we go. Quite an interesting day for me, man. I think was it last year in November. I went to they call it the ITC conference. I can't remember what ITC is anymore, but it was an interesting conference because we were kind of reimagining masculinity, right? And we were talking about how men are evolving and how to kind of support or kind of encourage men to kind of embrace the change that they're going through, and kind of speaking on some of the challenges. And one of the first speakers, man, came up with such a mind-bending topic for me. And I was like, I still have the notes from that very same day. And the man that I'm talking about, man, before I get too wrapped up in what happened for me on that day, is Kneo Mokgopa. And we're here at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, but there are other things involved in there that the man will break down for us, man. So welcome to Mad Up Conversation.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be on here.
Sure. Man. So tell us a little bit about this place. I mean, you say you've been here for 5 years, doing some comms and following on your social media. I've seen that you've, rapped and spoken to some highly, I'll call them important based on the work that I do. Maybe some people don't know them, but man, you're someone that I think I should have known a bit earlier, man. So tell us a little bit about Kneo Mokgopa, where you from, background-wise. Yeah.
Sure. So I was born in 93. And when I was born, my mother took me to kind of a family friend, an older woman, and I was raised by her in Zondi in Soweto. And then we moved a little bit to Bruma for some time. My parents split. We went back to Katlehong. And I think those experiences really shaped how I see the world. I think, especially when it comes to men as well, I think my dad being, what's the word now, physically abusive. He was an alcoholic and he was abusive as well. And my grandfather also being very, very violent. He had killed my grandmother as well. So, grew up with a lot of ideas about men are violent things, and it kind of, the way that it kind of landed with me was that if I want to be a man, I must also just be as violent.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So, went to JP Boys.
Okay.
A lot of people know JP Boys. Went to a boys' school. Learned some interesting things there, useful things, unhelpful things, kids being kids, also just growing up as human beings as well, know? And then I did a law degree at varsity and then I work here at the foundation.
Man. Okay, that sounds very interesting because you shared a story about a violent incident that you witnessed at this conference. And I was like, whoa, okay, I've seen violence growing up in Mamelodi. Then I remember an incident where a neighbor of ours, actually like siblings, were fighting and one guy got stabbed. And
siblings?
Yeah. Like at 7 a.m, like we're just waking up and what's going on here, So, we're from those kind of communities, but we often speak about the influence that they have on us. Like you say, your idea of manhood was going to be, geez, I need to be violent. But for some interesting reason, there's an article that I was featured on, and I said, because I was like very peaceful, man. I was like, I see the violence, but like, why the hell are we fighting? What's going on? Because I come from a very peaceful home. So it's very interesting to me how the environment also has this impact on us, but then we kind of come out the total opposite of that at times.
There's that saying, I think I saw it from a movie. I saw a clip on Instagram. And it said, the world will eat you up and you'll go through the large intestine, the small intestine, and you'll come out as a piece of shit, And what I appreciate is that I still got my sweetness. Yes, I'm a piece of shit, but I still got my sweetness. You
can never take it away from you.
Right?
I love it, bro.
And but like it's the whole notion of like you can't be dragged through the mud and come out dry at the end. We all grow up in these environments. We all learn the same things. And they all influence us to become particular things, to behave in particular ways. But I think the brilliant thing is taking accountability for yourself and really owning yourself and saying that I'm not merely a product of my environment. I have agency. I can also decide, okay, my life's going to be like this or like that, in other words. You know what I mean? I think that turn, that moment you're like, No, but I belong to me. You know? I think it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, I love it, man. That actually drives us right into the topic, man. Because we kind of unpacked a bit of patriarchy in some type of ways, right? But we're talking about protecting your critical thinking from patriarchy. And that was just, I was like, what? Like, I mean, what the hell is this man even talking about, right? And I pulled out my pen and pad and I was like, okay, let's get into this. So, I mean, patriarchy gets thrown around quite a lot. And for some people listening to this, you might know what it is, but some of us might not be so familiar with it. So maybe a bit of a history of patriarchy from your understanding.
Sure. I think the way that I like to approach the notion of patriarchy is as a system, like you were saying earlier, there's no head office of patriarchy, you can't go speak to the manager, you know? Yeah. And so it's a system in the sense that we all participate in it. We all co-create it. We all take what we want from it. We all suffer underneath it and, we all navigate it, however we can navigate it, And as a system, it's a system at the very, very basic level. It's the idea that where there is power, it must pass from one man to another man to another man to another man. And so you can think of, there's that thing, when, what is it now, in customary law and kind of more customs and all around the world, actually, not just in Africa and South Africa, where the eldest born son must inherit everything, you know what I mean? That's very classical patriarchy. But it's more than that, right? It also has ways that it influences how we build ourselves,
That's right.
how we identify, how we behave, what we believe, how we think even, And really by there, I mean, it is so invested in a strong gender binary, For there to be a man, there must be a woman, and they must be complete opposites of each other. There mustn't be an overlap. If there's an overlap, there's a problem. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so it's always interested in drawing that line. How can I continue to draw this line? So for instance, women start wearing pants, we need to find a new way. No. Their pants, the buttons go on this side, not on this side. You know what I mean? Kind of small things like that. About gender roles in the home, jobs as well. There are certain jobs that are seen to be like nursing. We've known for centuries and years and decades and generations that men can be nurses. They've always been nurses. But we still find it, this one is a nurse. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you used that example because my mother was a nurse. Man.
Is it?
And I was a soccer player for the longest time. And I asked my mom once, like, what did I say I want to be when I grow up? I was like, man, you weren't even interested in my nursing stuff. You just wanted to play soccer.
Is it?
And maybe that's like patriarchy right there, right? Because I never saw any men being nurses. It's like, I can't do that.
And that time you could have been excellent. I think about the ways that patriarchy will say, for instance, that men have firm hands and women have gentle hands.
Sure.
But most of the world's brain surgeons are men. And then you must have the most delicate, most finesse, most sensitive hand. You know what I mean? And so, patriarchy lies in that kind of way. It puts up these smoke screens, these narratives and whatnot. That's how I see patriarchy.
Oh, I love it.
How do you see it?
So, pretty much what you say, right? I often think about maybe for the most part, as you grow up, be very kind of unaware of it, right? We're just participating, like we're just doing things, right? And as you start to grow up, I had this conversation this past weekend that actually refreshed my thinking or just made me reflect a little bit. I was speaking to these varsity students from Tugs. And we're talking about masculinity. So what do you think masculinity is? Who are your heroes? And we're like, I'm scratching my head. It's very hard to. And mothers came up. I was like, my mother was my hero.
Nice.
So thinking about patriarchy, it's like, I might have looked outside to the Tupacs of the world and how rebellious they were. But the more I grew up into myself, to actually do what I do now, which is pretty much taking care of people, right? Maybe I don't do it with my hands, but it's kind of...
You're talking, which is,
right? And also talking about men's mental health, emotional well-being and all of that stuff. In some ways, it's like related to care. Right?
Absolutely.
So I've kind of... I guess I was patriarchal in a way that, the only way I can be someone in this world is be a soccer player, be a rapper, and all of these things. I'm like, actually, you can translate that into something that actually impacts people.
I get that.
So
it's amazing.
Without knowing, how I saw it, it's like, okay, well, now I can look back and be like, I see where that kind of took me.
I like what you're saying as well, because it also shows how it's not sustainable.
No.
You can't keep that performance all of your life, you know? I remember someone saying that when men are sitting down, they manspread, you know what I mean? They take up as much space as possible. But when they sleep, when no one's watching, they're here.
Thank you. It's the same thing about men don't cry. I don't believe that. You cry on your own. You don't cry in public, but I'm pretty sure at home you cry.
Yeah.
You know, that's this basic human beingness. You know, you cannot go on throughout your life without crying.
The first thing you did when you were born is cry, you know?
Exactly. But then how did we make the link now between patriarchy and critical thinking? Because then critical thinking is like, yeah, we talk about it, but we also, do we know what it is? Maybe some people do. But yeah, can you break down how that kind of link came up for you?
Sure. I mean, I guess it's all around us. I think that I grew up watching a lot of soapies, you know? Four Generations, what's it one on SBC3? Sting. And all of them, right? And there was this constant theme where men were placed in powerful positions, the Achimorokas and otherwise. And the way that they would engage, the way that they would speak and think would be from a place of power and not from a place of what makes sense, what's going to create value, you know? I'm going to do and say something and I'm going to perform power. You're going to slam the table. Hey, damn it! You know? One of these damn it's. You know?
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of always been on my mind. And then I heard the story. And the story is an old story. It's an ancient story. It exists in multiple different cultures, especially in the East. It was used by Buddhists, by Hindus, and all different kinds of religions in the East. Yes. It's called 6 Blind Men Discover an Elephant, you know? And the basic thing, so 6 blind men.
Okay.
There's an elephant in front of them, and they've never experienced an elephant. They have no knowledge of what an elephant is. This is the first time discovering it. So the first one goes up and touches the trunk, and he's like, "Oh no, I know this one. It's like a rope. I know. Yeah. A snake is like a rope. It's big and heavy like a rope." The other one touches the tusks. And says, "Oh yeah, no, it's a spear. It's like a spear, you know." Other one touches the side. "Oh no, this thing is a wall, guys, you know." And the leg is like a tree. The tail is like a snake. They all have different ideas. Now, critical thinking would say, listen to the other people, right? Try to create a composite image. Trust what other people are seeing and saying and what they're saying, you know what I mean? And draw on their experiences. So you don't have to have, how many hands is 16? 12 hands. You could have your own too, but then you multiply yourself. You know what I mean? You could be engaging with the world using all of these resources available at you. But instead of using those resources, what do the men do? They compete. No, what are you mad? No, of course it's like a snake. Are you crazy? It's like a wall, you know? And they go around, and really what they're demonstrating is this idea that, and it's a patriarchal idea, right? This idea that I am that one brilliant thing in this environment. And patriarchy says that there must be a hierarchy, there must be a chain, there must be some kind of order in a group of men. Who's the alpha? Who's the whatever, all those words, you know? And that's what they're doing. They're competing. And I think thinking about that story and the ways that it really demonstrates how patriarchy can fundamentally damage men's critical thinking. And by critical thinking, what I really mean is just thinking logically outside of, for lack of a better word, emotional biases, you know, psychological needs, you know, trying to be impressive, you know, ignoring things because this is what you believe needs to be. And so you're going to ignore other evidence because, you know, all of that kind of thing is failures in critical thinking. And so many failures of critical thinking can be described as patriarchal, you know, patriarchal thinking, which is to say that you only believe what you want to believe. You ignore things that go against you. You're not looking to use the people around you as part of the team, but you want an audience. You want them to watch you. You know what I mean? Look how brilliant I am, you know? Hey, Flick. You get what I mean, though?
And I love it because I've had a situation where I try to set up a men's kind of group. Like, cool, guys, hey, so this is what we're doing. We're going to meet on a Thursday evening, 6:30. We meet for 2 hours. This is what we're going to talk about. This is a start. now I'm already getting, okay, yeah, we can get an office here, guys. We need to talk about money. We need to talk about finance. You know what I mean? Now we have like, here we go. Now we got like designations here. So he's going to be this. Okay, no, there's an office that's opening up. Like, whoa. We're quick to jump in and like come with solutions, right? You know what I mean? Right? Because you can't be the man who's coming here to be like, yo, guys, we need to, now we have to assert our manhood. And
look what I did as well.
Look at what I did. You know what I mean?
I get that.
So it's like, okay, you kind of look at that now and like, okay, let's take a step back here. I'm not being the alpha by setting up something.
Aha.
No, I'm inviting all of us. We'll get to the money parts and who's going to run what, who's going to do. We'll get there. But for now, it's a start.
We're just talking for 2 hours. You know, we just start there.
This is just a conversation for 2 hours, right? To check in on how you're doing before you go and try to fix other kids in the week. You know what I mean?
I get that. It ruins all opportunities for anything meaningful to happen.
What are we then talking about?
I get that.
There's 20 other topics that are coming up, but no, I just said let's check in with each other. How are we doing?
Yeah.
Right?
But it also could be like avoidance, you know? Like, this is so uncomfortable. I'm going to do this instead, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You know, when it's almost like two magnets when they're what's the word? Pushing each other away. You know? And anything but this. It doesn't even matter what it is, as long as it's not this. You know what I mean?
Man. And now you spoke about fallacies and just the whole idea of logical fallacies. Like I said, I guess the most obvious example would be on social media, because then you can actually see the commentary from people like, well, you're not talking to the argument here. You actually are taking the person's credibility or everything, you know? So maybe can you give us examples of some of those fallacies and how they show up in our conversation?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with the one that you were mentioning, and that one is called the ad hominem fallacy. And what's interesting about it is that it works in both ways, and I think both ways also demonstrate patriarchal thinking. So the first is to say that, no, I don't believe that because this person said it, you know. So let's say, okay, this is an interesting example. Let's say Donald Trump says that red velvet cake is the best cake in the world. Now, different people are going to respond differently based on who is saying it. It's not about whether or not red velvet is actually good. It's that, no, I don't want to align myself with Donald Trump, you know. Sometimes it can be a matter of thinking that you're better than the person speaking. You know, like who do they think they are? You know, have they met me? Do they know who I am? How amazing I am? You know? No, it's rubbish. I never believe anything from this speaker. Or it's you believe them only because they said it, you know? Oftentimes I've written about how men are taught to love men. Men love men, you know. So recently on social media, there's been a lot of conversations about men and loyalty, how they're very loyal to their boys, but not so loyal to their families, you know? That kind of thing. That's, you love the boys, you know? Yeah, the wife can, but you know? All of the main religions around the world, they have very strong male figures. And so even when you're in a religious mindset, there's still a strong kind of or a man is the golden thing, is the special one, you know what I mean? Soccer players, presidents, you know, the things that we talk about when we're talking about power and things that we enjoy in sports, we're always talking about men. Men. And so when men hear other men speaking, they're more likely to agree and to believe what they're saying. This is an ad hominem, you know?
That's a brilliant example. Man.
You know? Men will love men. But, and then another one is that comes to mind is confirmation bias. So I'm trying to think of like an example here, but maybe it'll come to me as I'm speaking. So it's the basic idea is that when you believe something and you're looking at all of the evidence concerning your beliefs, you're going to cherry pick the ones that confirm, even if there's only 20 out of 100 that confirm. But because there's 20, you're going to, I'm sure. You know what I mean? And it's just this notion that to have your mind changed is to be weak in some ways. You know what I mean? Look at him, he's flip-flopping. You know, no, he's not a strong man. He's not decisive. And, you know, I say what I said.
He's not standing on business.
He's not standing on business. You know? To be a critical thinker would mean oh, there's new evidence. I didn't know this before. I know it now. I'm going to change my beliefs and my behaviors because of this new evidence. Patriarchy says, or confirmation bias says, double down.
Stand on it. Man.
Stand on it. Put more chips in. Put more bets in fact. Man. You know what I mean? And so those are the ways, and those are some examples of logical fallacies. And also how oftentimes logical fallacies are often demonstrations of patriarchal thinking. And that's why patriarchy makes men bad at critical thinking.
Man, that's so powerful. We spoke to Meshkekano, who was speaking about fatherhood sometime last year, one of the previous episodes. And he mentioned exactly that, you know, wow. as you sit now as a man, you're sitting with both your hands are full, right? And there's now all of these podcasts that are popping up and all of these new ideas about men's mental health and all of these things, right? And they're forcing you now you have to like put one of those cups down because your hands are full and you have to pick up new info.
I get
but
that.
A lot of us are trying to like stack like the third cup or like maybe like let me pour a little bit on the left and on the right, you know, and like let me see how I can manage that. But you're gonna have to empty something at some point.
You're
right?
gonna
have to unlearn something at some point.
Sure.
You know? And it's a very hard process. What we spoke about with Malosilanga as well was, you know, being different as a man is quite hard.
Sure.
Because then you're fighting forces from friends, from family, from even your women sometimes. Like, what's going on with this new expression of yours? I don't understand that. You know, this is not very fatherly of you. This is not very husband manly of you to do that. But then here I am trying to kind of navigate life in a very different, I suppose I'm still patriarchal in some ways, but then I'm unlearning some of the things and I'm picking up new things that to some people might not seem very manly.
Sure, but you know, like how we can all be patriarchal. I've seen queer couples, 2 lesbians in a relationship, and there's hectic patriarchy there, you know? And it gets even dark sometimes, right? So there's a story, I won't say any names, but these 2 women were in a relationship. They very much modeled the relationship around, heteronormativity. So one was very much performing a man, the other one is performing womanness or femininity. The one got very possessive, very controlling, very manipulative, and didn't like it when she would leave and she would come back and then her girlfriend isn't there anymore. So what she started doing is chaining her girlfriend to the basin, underneath the basin, when she would leave and come back and unlock her. Can you imagine? You know what I mean? So like to say that, maybe I'm trying to say that being a man itself is not the thing that makes you patriarchal. It's living in this society. Women can be patriarchal. I think that women oftentimes are socialized to have, in some ways, patriarchal fantasies, which is to say, to fantasize about Isogalam who's going to come and protect me, he's going to come and save me, he's going to lift me up from this, he's going to take me away, he's going to take me out. You know what I mean? He's going, I am the young girl in the tower, locked away in the castle. And he's my knight in shining armor, and he is active, he has muscle, he has agency, he has resources, he has a mind, and he can do this, and he can save me. And so they're fantasizing about patriarchy. You know what I mean? And so women can be just as patriarchal in their own ways as well. And so maybe I'm trying to say that it doesn't really take anything away, but it's not being a man that makes you patriarchal in as much as any other identity can be patriarchal.
Because we learn the systems like literally everywhere, right? It could be in our schools. Because the school is very important in terms of how we think and kind of, I guess, break down concepts, ideas and that. So if that's ingrained in our school system,
I get that.
You know, then how are we then going to fight this patriarchy? Because then the kids are growing up with it. You know? And like you just made the example now, it's not only the boys. You know? As much as the focus is on, like we say, men are being policed and all of that. Yeah, sure. Maybe we're looking at the wrong lens or looking at it through the wrong lens, right? Like, guys, men are the problem. But let's see how this is now impacting on women. And it's very much in our school system, and we're still perpetuating this, but we're trying to fix things now, or I guess take care of the sort of symptoms, but not the root causes of what's happening. You know? So is there a need maybe to also revisit how we kind of teach thinking in schools.
I would say that. I think that every country's education must respond to the country's needs. You know what I mean? And so, for instance, it was the most crazy thing. I don't know why, but in high school, I didn't learn about Mapungubwe. I didn't learn about the 80s and apartheid. No, I was learning about Russian revolutions and the French Declaration. You know what I mean? All these things. But I think that a proper education must respond to our needs, you know? And I think that our needs are very much in that space. We've had really big narratives about gender-based violence, you know? And I think even that conversation, how we moved from domestic violence to gender-based violence. You know what I mean? And what that means, you know? I've lost my... Yes, but I think education is a huge part of it. But what's also interesting is that the education that we're getting about gender, about masculinity, about patriarchy is often not explicit in the syllabus.
Thank you.
You know, it's not something that someone thought about. We just continue on. It's just how we know how to live. You know, I remember, for instance, in high school, and these are small examples, but when they're so consistent and there's so many of them, it penetrates, you know. There was a golf day. So all the men teachers would play golf. And they're raising funds, you know? and it was a woman who came and actually said, like, oh, yes. And then maybe all the ladies can bring tea, like on little trays. Because she has this fantasy of like, I don't know, what's that show? With the big hats, not the hats, the big hair, and they're very, yes, was that some tea?
Oh, yes.
What a bean, Bridgerton. Was it Bridgerton?
I can't remember the name. But I know exactly what
you're saying. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to be all, you know? I remember the woman that she was talking to, my English teacher, was like, because it was so crazy to her. But for her, it was so normal. You know, and I think it's because it's so normal in so people's many lives that, of course, when I need something heavy to be lifted, can I get two strong boys to come lift this thing up? You know? So who's going to ask you out? I'm going to wait for someone to ask me out for the dance. You know, in those kinds of small ways. And and so I think that if there was then some thinking applied to say that we're aware that patriarchy is a problem in our country. And we're aware that it spreads in schools too. And it's not explicit in the curriculum. So let's put something that's explicit to counteract that. So we can produce healthy individuals who, you know what I mean, are free from stereotypical thinking, patriarchal thinking, are able to love themselves, have healthy relationships, trust. So one thing I struggle with is trust. It's difficult for me to trust you with my feelings. I can communicate about everything else. But, you know, able to trust people that they're in relationships with. You know what I mean? I think it would be a beautiful future.
Oh,
you know?
I love that. Trust is such a huge issue, man. And, you know, as you said that, you threw me off a little bit. And I was like, man, I had something. But you're speaking about our school systems and how we move from domestic to gender-based violence, right? And we had this conversation the other day speaking about how our grandparents were, right? And thinking about patriarchy and our grandparents, I'm like, you know, judging from what I know and what I've asked about my granddad, never met him. As he was a sweet man, very loving, very kind, and all of these things, right? And like, okay, well, if we now saying that African men are patriarchal, what are we talking about exactly? You know, I feel like there's a need for us to kind of revisit what did the generation before apartheid kind of do? How did they live? How did they express their manhood? You know, what is that world like? Because I don't know
so much.
I don't know it, man. You know, because it seems like we only speak of men in apartheid and after apartheid.
But there was a whole life
But I'm sure there was a life before. I'm pretty sure there was. You know? Yeah, there was infighting between the tribes and all of that. I mean, that's natural. You know, war's going to come. But then were we subjecting our great-grandmothers to like patriarchy and you must stay in the home and wash dishes?
Can you imagine?
As you speak about, you know, the past, in our syllabus, in our curriculum, I think we need to kind of include that.
I get that.
What happened? Where does the African man actually come from?
You know, sorry, I have a chat about this. So kind of two things. So I want to signpost it so don't forget. The one is Shaka Zulu was a lot more impactful than we like to imagine. But number 2 is Sangoma, yes.
Yeah.
Let me start with number 2. I was talking to this traditional healer, Isangoma, that works here in Johannesburg, Koko Mahlodi. We're talking about gender. I think we started talking about gender in the ways that Africa has all of these interesting ways of identifying in gender, you know, not only in papers that were written about Yoruba land, which is kind of pre-colonial Nigeria, and how the notion of womanness as a category was imported during colonization, and it's very strongly documented exactly how they would structure the society around age, being senior, as opposed to whether you're a man or a woman, you know? Think about Maskandi singers, you know, they sing in high-pitched voices, they wear earrings, sometimes they wear skirts, you know what I mean? So they're not even interested in trying to, you know, perform that whole Isoga kind of interesting, you know what I mean? I think about Indotagazi, you know, so this whole idea of female husbandry where in many cultures in South Africa, when a husband and a man passes away, his responsibilities as a husband get passed on mainly to his brothers. Yes. But if he has no brothers, it passes to the sisters as well. And she becomes Indotagazi. Now here she is, a woman that is a husband that has to perform all of the roles of a man in a patriarchal society. You know what I mean? And maybe lastly, I want to think about sangomas themselves, right? And how when you are... And again, I'm very poor with how I word this and I'm not too clued up. But when you're sharing this vessel with many beings or another being, you know, how do you identify in terms of gender? And what you were saying is that in pre-colonial Africa, in South Africa in particular, it wasn't so much about what your genitals are saying or facial hair and other things like that. It was your role in society that placed you in particular groups. You know what I mean? Right. And so there were oftentimes men in the fields because there were men with very careful hands and that could weave that basket like you've never seen before. And we still have those men in society. Yes, you know what I mean? There were women who were hunting because, hey, this one is fast. This one, she runs like something else. And she was allowed to be hunting there with other men as well, you know? And this is from a Sangoma, so you take the credibility. Yeah. So I think this notion of the African man, it doesn't have a lot of evidence for it in that kind of setting. Yes, we are aware that those kinds of men, warriors and otherwise, of course they existed, but there's how central they were is a question, you know? Coming to Shaka Zulu is very fascinating, guys. Shaka Zulu is fascinating. You know this whole big myth that we have about, what is it now? Zulu men in particular, that, you know, they're strong and they're arrogant and they're powerful and they're dominant and all of that. All of these myths, really, because, you know.
It's a story. It sounds like a bunch of stories.
It is.
When you do listen to them. Yeah.
So what happened was there was this this European man who was taking goods on a ship. I forget his name. I believe it was Cook something, C-O-O-K. Okay. I may be wrong there. But basically, you know, it storms in Durban. He was passing by Durban. A storm hit. He lost his cargo. But now he didn't... I forget the exact details of the story, but he would be liable unless he was attacked by someone else. He couldn't just say the storm hit. So he says, yeah, you know those Zulus over there? Yo, those Zulus are bad, man.
Okay.
And he gassed up the Zulus and how powerful. And he even singled out, there's the one called Shaka Zulu. Yeah, he's the Zulu of the Zulus. And, you know, creating this big myth because he didn't want to pay for his lost cargo. So now, of course, the British take that on. We must be careful. We must be careful. The Zulus are mighty. They will destroy your life, you know? And that's pretty much the terms in which they would engage with Zulu people, even in terms of military senses, you know? Very aggressively, lots of guns. They were scared, you know? And all of this writing, all of this conversations, these stories that get shared around and whatnot in these circles, they land up in, you know, contemporary society and, you know, we pick them up. You know, there's ghosts of these stories in our society, you know? And so I think that a large part of this myth of the Zulu, not the Zulu, but the African man, you know, I think is very much on the terms of the Shaka Zulu story. I think that it is European men who didn't want to own up in some kinds of ways, and it was easier for them to say they're so terrifying than to either humanize them. So, for instance, it's easier to say that these are monsters and go and invade them than to say these are human beings and go invade them. And so it works in your interest to say, they are monstrous, we have to go and chop them down. As opposed to, you know, they have families, they have culture, they sing. Have you heard them singing?
Yeah. They play drums.
They play drums and we play drums. So I think colonialism has a very big impact in this myth of the big, tall African man, you know?
So it's kind of, I guess we're arguing a lost cause when we talk about men and we don't consider those things, or the African man, and we don't consider that. You know, and a lot of people would be like, yeah, but that was a very long time ago. Like, yeah, but it has an impact.
It does.
Right?
It does.
Because the crazy thing is, you know, like I said, man, I spoke to these boys and I said, man, who are your heroes? And they were struggling to eventually some fathers came up, but it was like so rare. Like out of 11 boys, only 2 is like a father. I mean, it's not to make it a bad thing, because patriarchy says, hey, for men, your heroes should be men. Like
I get
you said,
that.
you know. And I would think, like, if I had a dad, I didn't grow up with him, or if he was present, then my dad would have been some kind of person that I look up to.
I would have loved it.
You know, maybe if he was, maybe he would have been an asshole. I don't know. So then it also lands us back with those mental health issues that we're facing as a country. I think pretty much a wounded society, man.
Yeah.
And maybe not just South African men. I think just black men on a global scale, because our history is so unknown and sort of untapped, unexplored. And when you now start talking about colonialism, you now seem like those old people like, man, you want to now take us back there. Like that's necessary, because they pass, like you said, these guys would wear dresses, they wear earrings. So there was, that gender was like not even a thing.
Just live your life.
You were just people, right? So then how do you think then, you spoke about Buimamelo. And I remember that specific, I was like, oh man, that's such a wonderful, it's mindfulness, right?
Yes.
How then do we incorporate mindfulness into helping us be more critical, I guess, in terms of our thinking?
I get that.
Yeah.
I think that to be critical, you must start with mindfulness, you know. And I like Buimamelo because as a direct translation, it's listening to yourself, or the act of listening to yourself. And it's really just being present and feeling what you're feeling. It's so easy not to feel the thing that you're feeling. And I know it sounds weird, but it's easy to, let's say, I don't know, be in a car accident and instead of feel the shock, the fear, the anxiety, straight to anger. Go to, I'm going to mess someone up now. You know what I mean? So feel the thing that you're feeling. If you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling scared, if you're feeling excited, if you're feeling, you know, feel the thing that you're feeling. Because from there, you're able then to make decisions. You know what I mean? And I think that, I'm kind of mincing my words now, but I think a lot about this idea of the powerful CEO man. And it doesn't seem as though, at least in the short term, we're going to be able to solve that problem. And in some ways, I'm not sure, this is such a negotiation. But insofar as men are going to lead, and society desires men to lead, because we have these fantasies of that strong man is going to take care of us, we all want our fathers back. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we'll get them however we can. You know what I mean? I've lost my train of thought entirely, but yeah.
But I mean, you know, when we think of like archetypes now, when we go into something that I learned recently is if you look at masculinity as not just a stereotype, as an archetype, then now we start to tap into a little bit more expression of what the masculine can be, right?
I like that.
Right? Because then, for lack of better examples, let's go to Carl Jung's work, where we talk about a warrior, a king, a lover, and a magician. Right?
I get that.
For men to think of themselves as lovers, you know, you rarely hear men like, I'm a lover. That's quite a joke when you say.
But I wanna. R&B singers have carved out a space for themselves. Who's this singer? I forget his name now, but he's got the thick glasses, big perm hair, he's a bit bigger, dark motherfucker. An American guy, and he sings, and he's always sweating.
I'm trying to, not Barry White, no, it's not Barry White.
No, but anyways, just like, you know, that class of R&B singers, though. You know, the Manhattan Brothers, the Manhattans themselves, and all of these, the Commodores, and maybe I'm trying to say that the big story of what men are versus what men actually are on the ground, sometimes there's differences. Because we love those R&B singers. No one is calling them sissies. No one is bashing them down. You know what I mean?
We love those. Right?
We're singing them to our girls right now.
We don't have those kind of, those get looked down on. You know, even the raunchiness of the music, it's become so raw now. You know, even when those guys used to talk about sex, it was, man, you know, I'll make love, whatever. You know, we sang it. You know, it was like, oh,
there's intimacy.
Now it's like, yo, man, but Chris Brown to they just ripping panties off, right?
What's that song by Drake? Make that ass clap. Make it for Drake. Something.
Right? I'm riding in the car with my girl, like that's what we're singing now. You know, I'm no longer romantic. Like I don't have songs to like romance my women anymore. So it's like this patriarchy, masculinity has become like a straitjacket.
I see what you're saying.
Kind of like tied to myself, and like I can't even open up to like embrace someone. Right? So it's pretty wild, man. But as you say, we Mamelo can get us into that kind of like realizing that I'm greedy, I'm raw, whatever, but there's a softer side here to me as well. Right?
Absolutely, and I think it's just the truth, you know. Like I don't know. Have you ever seen two security guards walking and holding hands?
No.
Oh, you're lying.
Whoa, hold on. Hold on.
But friends, you know, like, wars are and then they walk together.
As you say
you
that,
know?
Because of the generation.
Yes.
Because of the generation. Those guys are very handsy.
They are.
Right? Because they don't consider it pause, kind of movements, no homo type of
hold hands and come, we're going together. I'm going to hold your hand, we're going to walk. You know what I mean? So I guess I'm trying to say that, like, that men are in so many ways sensitive beings, and we find our ways in navigating patriarchy. So I can't cry and hug you right now, but let's go watch Manchester versus Liverpool, and then we lose. Then I can cry and I can hug you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just finding opportunities. I'm also navigating patriarchy. You know what I mean? And but like you're saying, I think Mamelo also says that you really are a whole human being. Just see yourself. Just feel what you're really feeling and look around you. Right. Can you see that? Oh my God, did you see that one? Did you see that one? Right. So how warmly that man smiled at you, you know, and he let you in. He wasn't being a Manchengelani. He was being a genuine guy. Yes, and again, you know, you're my brother. You know what I mean? And maybe just to say that men have a lot of work to do. And I don't want to underscore that, not even for a second. Men have been one of the most biggest problems to the livelihoods of women, of children, of the environment, of the economy. You know, when things crash, we know it's the men in the stockroom. You know what I mean? But
of ourselves.
Of us. Of ourselves and each other. And you know how the statistics of violence between men is a lot higher than violence outside of the genders. You know what I mean? And so we're a risk to ourselves, each other, and this planet. But at the same time, I've seen and I know men to be capable of intimacy, capable of care, capable of listening to themselves, you know? I remember my old boss here at work, he was split, so him and his wife had split, and they had children, and he was looking after the children. And he would say that he said to me, he had to learn how to mother.
Wow.
And at the time I was shook because he was a little bit of an aggro, you know, decisive, shake the room kind of guy. He was very caring as well. But to hear him say that I mother my children. Wow. And owning that, he wasn't embarrassed about it. He saw his children and he loves his children and he's going to mother those children. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes just to say that when men are doing it, we need to also say, hey, look, and not have that same confirmation bias where we're unable to see the examples that say that it's not actually like that. You know, we have this big story, but is it actually like that? Can you see? Can you look? You know, that's what I think about a lot sometimes.
Oh, I love it. I love it, man. Kneo Mokgopa is here, man. I'm loving this conversation, man. So we're gonna wrap this, man, and you know we can go on for. I'm gonna have you back here. Like we gotta do some more of these.
I'm so keen.
I mean, we've already kind of spoken around a lot of ideas, what men can do and what that. But I usually leave it for the last. You know, maybe if you do have, you can. If you don't, it's okay. But what's like the one thing that we can do for ourselves?
Ooh,
for ourselves, man, you know, because there's this thing that we never reward ourselves. We're always kind of doing stuff, always, you know, we're always providing. Hey, you need to go fix. Yo, stuff is going on at the office. No, it's fine. I'll stay later. You know, you know what I mean? Like we say, men are expendable, right? Right.
Damn.
So to give back to ourselves, man, what could be that one thing for you?
Sorry, you said that men are expendable. Okay, sorry, that's powerful, and I think there's a lot to be said there. But what can men do for themselves? You know what I've always enjoyed, and I know it's a thing that men often do, but I think that when you're intentional about it, go get a haircut. Go get a haircut. No, I'm serious. Go get a haircut and double down in it and saying, this is my time. I know this, my brother, he's been with me for the long, he cares about me. Sure. He wants me to look good, this motherfucker.
Yes, man.
You know what I mean? And then someone is caring for you. It's like how it's grooming. And all animals around this world, you know, that grooming does so much. It not only does it create strong bonds, but it's healing as well. Many men aren't touched. Men are touched starved.
You took the words right out of my mouth. But yeah.
You know? And it's not romantic or anything like that, but just to have someone else's warmth and their touch on you. It does so much for the psyche, it does so much for the mind, you know, and you know that freshness you feel after being cared for, after being groomed, after someone saying, this is all about you, you know, I care. It's not about me, this one. It's just, you know what I mean? That kind of moment, and holding it and cherishing it and knowing what's happening right now, I think is a powerful thing of like, breathe. People care about you. You can care about other people. There's space. You deserve love. You deserve care. You know?
Oh, I love that, man. And you know, as you talk about barbershops, I mean, I've worked in a barbershop before. And I used to cut hair. You know, love it. You know,
Is it?
Man, if I could do that again, I'd definitely like, maybe run my own and
I
like,
feel
do something,
that.
you know?
I feel that.
But I was with my barber just yesterday, and this man actually said to me that, KG, you know, you're in a very vulnerable position right now. Because listen, I'm giving you a shave. This is very close to your throat. So this requires a lot of trust, you know? So you know what I mean? So as much as you talk about vulnerabilities and that, man, I think when a man is most vulnerable is when he's at the barbershop. And that's why the conversations, as Americans would say, they have the most open conversations in a barbershop. Because, man, I'm trusting this man here with my life. I'm pretty much open. Because even my throat, I'm sitting there like literally open.
Yeah.
You know? So there's nothing that I can kind of reach onto or hold onto to kind of like hide myself.
You're vulnerable.
You're
open there. Wow.
So I love that, man. So, man, get yourself cleaned up, get a shave, get a cut, do something, man. If you want, you can go for a wax. You know,
come on, live your life.
You know, live your life, man. Man, Kneo Mokgopa is here, man. It's been another insightful episode of Man Up Conversation. So now, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Sure. I'm often active on Instagram at bloody_Kneo. And that's where my life is. I post a lot about what I'm up to, what I'm doing, art, workshops, writing pieces. So you can follow me there.
Man, we'll share all of that in the show notes, man. Make sure you reach out to them, man. Check out his content. There's a lot of cool stuff going on there. I'm constantly laughing at half of the stuff you post on Facebook. I'm just like
I was trying to avoid the Facebook. Don't look at my Facebook.
Nah, but man, exceptional brother here, man. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Peace and love. Catch you on the flip side.